that moment I saw her, she just cried and cried because her heart deeply opened and she let out all the grief she had stored up from the things that happened in her life. And the horse just laid its head into her arms, looked at her from below, and she just was crying, and the horse was there, knowing that horse was literally giving her a huge gift. And you could not force that from an animal. He was giving her the gift of being a loving presence in her life she never had.
Today, I am super excited to have Dr. Nicola Amadora on the show. Dr. Nicola Amadora blazes a trail of love around the world as a spiritual teacher, psychologist, Hakomi trauma and equine therapist, author, and speaker. She has helped thousands of people, including children and parents. Nicola is passionate about horses who are supporting us to heal and love. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Mala. I really appreciate your invitation.
Yes, it took a while to figure it out and get you on, but I'm excited to have you here. So let's just jump right in. I know you've done so many different things and you have so many different talents, but today I really want to talk about, I myself run a children's camp called Sacred Hoofprints, where we intertwine spiritual and shamanic fun stuff with the children. And then we interweave it with equine therapy, or really the horses. And sometimes I don't like to use the word therapy because people kind of get the wrong idea. So, but anyway, with the horses. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about your work in that area. So can you share how you began your journey into working with horses and equine therapy?
Well, thank you so much for asking, Mala. So it's not my main work currently,
Right.
I weave horses also into my spiritual retreats. And how I started was, well, because of a great love for horses. So I was 10 years old, walked into a stable. Sorry, that's my cat.
Yeah, darling.
And I fell in love with the horses, and all I wanted is to be with them. So I asked the stable owner, and he said, "Yeah, you can just mark stables, right?" That was
right.
And I could feel that as a child, coming from a rather abusive home, that every time I came into the stable, every time I brushed a horse or mucked the stable, I could feel that they gave me what I didn't have at home, a safety, where I could feel the horse, it sounds maybe strange, understands me without needing to use words. And I could feel how the horse was soothing my heart, really healing my heart. At that time, I didn't have any words like that for it. I just felt at home with them. And then I took riding lessons. And of course, I had to earn every riding lesson with mucking stables. But it was worthwhile for me because I just treasured the connection so much.
It's so beautiful because to have that connection, and really there wasn't anyone explaining to you about how large horses' aura fields are, or all the research and heart math and all these things. You just felt it. I think that's really the beauty of working with horses. So I know I know this isn't your main, but go ahead.
So when so I kept riding, like I bored everybody's horse and rode them. And at some point when I was in the holistic psychology program of, going for it, and I had to do an internship, and I found this amazing place that was actually at that time funded, I think, by the government. And it was horse riding therapy. And it was specifically for sexually abused girls and autistic children. And I know that's really your interest, Mala. And then I got so inspired seeing what is happening for the children and also how much the horses love it. We had a lot of Icelandic ponies on that farm. And we also had, it was connected also to a youth farm where the inner city kids would come and take care of an animal. And we had like 20 horses. So I saw what happened. It was unprecedented, really, and I can tell more about it in a moment. But that inspired me also to do an official training along my, university degree to do become a certified horse equine therapist. It's a terrible name, I think.
I know it isn't a very good name. I totally agree with you. But anyway.
And then I continued with that work and was amazed about some of the stories that I can tell later. And then later, much later, I included the horses in in many of my retreats, and also gave therapeutic sessions with horses in combination with Hakomi. And then I did also like a lot of mindfulness, nature connection retreats with the horses, specifically with women. And I could see, we had also these family days in the Buddhist tradition. I used to have a spiritual center. We had sometimes like 20, 50 families. That was when my daughter still was little. So as soon as we got the horses involved, the practices became so much clearer and simpler and more applicable because it made sense to the kids, to be present or mindful. It has no meaning for a child until it has an effect with the horse and for themselves. So, and I still, to this day, right now I live in France, to this day, I have a gorgeous Andalusian horse, and when he was a stallion, I just rode him bareback with a halter because I know how to train a horse in natural horsemanship, so liberty style. That's what I also showed people. Liberty is not just having the horse do things without a rope. It's also a deeply healing experience when you come into, I would say, union with the horse.
Absolutely.
And especially, the spiritual practice that I bring in, they help to engage with the horse in a much more real and deeper way, where you literally can understand the language of the horse. And therefore yourself too.
Could you share a few stories with us? That would be wonderful.
Yeah. So that was quite a while ago when I worked as an intern at that time at that center. And I think one of the stories that I have never forgotten, it was when I took this Icelandic pony with the boy who was autistic, and nobody, no matter what they tried, they never got him. He never got to talk. Nobody got him to open his mouth and say a word. So how I work is not to deal with the symptom, but rather see if I can catch the cause without analyzing. And so I knew that the horse would be a bridge because he loved horses. He spent such a long time in the stable and brushing the horse, and it was like he was communicating to the horse in a way that the horse could understand him. So I made a game out of it. When he was riding and I was leading him, I said to the horse, I can't remember the name of the horse. I said to the horse, what do you think Matt wants to do? Where does he want to go? And then I pretended to answer for the horse, which the horse actually didn't know where Matt wanted to go because Matt didn't give him a sign.
Right, right.
I said, you mean Matt doesn't tell you where to go? You just following me. So I started to have a conversation with the horse, quite natural. Matt, meanwhile, looked at me and the horse, and I swear to you, it was a total shock for both. He said, my horse wants to go where he wants to go.
Oh my God. You must have just, oh my goodness.
So what I did was pretend this was just a normal
A
thing.
normal thing, yeah.
I didn't make a fuss about it. I said, okay. I said to the horse, I can't remember the name of the horse either. And I said to the horse, well, then go ahead. You show us the way because Matt wants you to go where you want to go. Well, the horse said, I'm going grazing. I'm going
Love it.
Then Matt says, no, please, can we ride my horse? So it's like for Sam, let's call the horse Sam. Can we please walk more, Sam?
You said that out loud.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And then I looked at Sam, the horse, and I said, hey, would you do Matt a favor? And just walk a little bit more, and then you go grazing. You know how good he takes care of you. And Sam, the horse, suddenly, because this was not just a conversation that was unreal and made up. The horse was paying attention.
Yes.
Sam turned around, looked at Matt, like with his head. Matt looked into his eyes, and Matt said, please. Sam lifted his head and walked. And from that moment, Matt was cured.
Wow. That is an amazing story.
He needed to not feel so alone. He felt the horse is safer than people.
Well, they are.
And he was a very, very shy, withdrawn boy who lived in his own world.
Right.
But nobody could really reach him, no matter how people tried, no matter how loving. It was Sam who got through to him.
Wow.
So every day he begged his parents to go to Sam. And they were in tears when they saw how their little boy had started talking.
Oh,
It's
wow.
tears to my eyes. And later, they bought Sam, and Sam and Matt became inseparable. And because he had Sam, who was his best friend, Matt started improving major also.
Wow. How wonderful that the family bought Sam. I mean, how often it's like they found one another. Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful story.
One thing I forgot in the story, what was beautiful, I wondered if he would make the bridge with me as a person. There was one moment where this was the first moment I noticed he looked at me and he said, Sam is my horse now. You don't tell him what to do.
Oh my gosh. So the bridge was.
I just said, Matt, okay.
Right, right. Well, I think I know the beauty of this is from my work and just studying the research. And also, I've had so many animal communicators, and this is something I want to really, so you have to kind of find out on your own, but animals really do understand telepathically what you're saying. And if you just try with even your own family, and what a gift for the children to see that and understand that and have that unconditional love. Even the children that are not autistic, or the children just listen, our kids today, don't kids always, they do have their struggles. And a horse just gives them such unconditional love and no judgment and no agenda. You talk about that too. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh, that is so true. I also noticed that even with adults, the horse becomes a friend if you spend enough time. And when you said about animal communication, I used to teach that, with the wild animals, but also with the mustangs.
Right.
In Arizona. And because they were very rough with the mustangs.
Right.
So I taught even parents and children, I taught them how to communicate, because first you have to connect. If you do not connect, and how do you connect is through getting really present. So therefore you practice, which is useful, breathing, mindfulness, and all that.
Right.
And then when you're more still and you let your heart open, they speak with you. You can hear it, you can feel it, because I always say it's a universal language that underneath all our stuff, we know and they know. We just need to learn to listen. And in this world right now, how crazy it's become, and with all the technology for kids, not even autistic kids, any kid,
Right.
there is a constant overwhelm happening, and it's going all in the head. Yeah, a lot of mental chatter, but a deep disconnection, which leads to suffering, really, I've seen. But when you touch a horse, you have to be present, because the horse can step on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the horse notices when you ride and you're just going off in your head about what you should post on Instagram.
Oh my gosh.
For the
What I
teenage.
love is that we do all groundwork. And I love that because it's just a totally different experience.
Yeah,
It's like we're not going to ride the horse. So,
it's
Nicola,
magical.
I know I had this relationship with my dogs too. I remember when my son was 9 years old, we were at the Waldorf school.
My daughter
And
too, by the way.
yeah. And he was kind of, I don't like saying a child is shy, but a little bit. And I remember one of the teachers said to me, it's time to get a puppy. So he'll have someone to really. And I tell you, we got a puppy, Dakota, and they would sit for hours and just have these conversations. It was just so beautiful.
Yeah, yeah,
They weren't right on about other things, but they were right on about that.
yeah.
For sure. For,
My daughter, yeah, my daughter too. She went always into our horse stable when she was
yeah,
upset. And the first
yeah.
thing I could hear in the corner, she was talking to her horse.
Right. Tell us a little bit. I work with women too, with women's groups and horses. Tell us, do you have a story for us about a woman who came in and just felt, you know, transformed, or just a
Mm.
story about how spending time with the horse really helped her?
I have so many stories
Great, go for it. We love
from
stories.
couples healing, from women having a huge transformation, from parents with children suddenly connecting. I mean, in one of the retreats, I remember it was beautiful, because what we practiced is the connection with the horses. And when we shift our energy to become more present and, yeah, silent, connected, in touch in our bodies, 3 horses at the same time laid down in the field.
Wow.
And the one woman who had never experienced, a horse connection, actually she came because she had a lot of fears. So, and she was very intimidated by the sheer size of
Yes.
the horse, yeah. But when the horse laid down, she started crying her eyes out because she felt, for the first time in her life, she said, she felt like that being that's more powerful is actually helping her to feel safe instead of intimidating her from the sheer size, you know. And she touched the horse. And in that moment, I saw her, she just cried and cried because her heart deeply opened and she let out all the grief she had stored up from the things that happened in her life. And the horse just laid its head into her arms, looked at her from below, and she just was crying. And the horse was there, knowing that that horse was literally giving her a huge gift. And you could not force that from an animal. He was giving her the gift of being a loving presence in her life she never had before.
Right. Do you say anything to the women other than just, I want to, whether you put them on a massage table or they're sitting in a chair, do you just let the energy happen without really giving them any guidance or anything?
I don't do massage. I don't.
Well, I didn't mean massage. I have one woman I work with who I'll never forget. I went to have a session with her, and all the horses were lined up when I got there. And she has a table out in the arena, and I laid down on the table, and then you just see the horse energy and what happens with that. But anyway, however you do it, do you really say anything or you just let it happen?
I do give some instruction because there is I let the women then go, whether that's kids or parents or women, I let them first stand in the circle. We have usually in a round pen. And lately I've been using my Andalusian and he just says hello to everybody. So I let them make the first contact just in silence. But then I start instructing them because there's a lot of insecurity.
Right.
The question is, how am I to be with the horse? Because the horse comes and sniffs around. Will he bite me or will he? So start with, he doesn't bite. And this is a couple of things I need to tell you how to be around a horse. So no sudden movements, so you don't scare him, things like that. And then what we do usually before we go any further, we go down and sit down and meditate, and I guide them into their bodies, into presencing, opening the heart, and then feeling into the connectedness with the horse. So that they actually, I don't tell them what to feel. I just say, okay, so now explore what's happening for you when you open your eyes and you see him and what he's doing. Do you see him from just the outside or do you feel him? Not just. So there's then, I lead with curiosity, and then a bit more relating. And then I also let them do some practices with the horse, and I call it playful interactions. The fun thing is, my horse, as most horses I've worked with, they respond pretty much instantaneously when you play and when you do it through connection and presencing. It's like it's magic. People always say the same. This was the most magical afternoon. This was the most magical retreat.
Yeah, it's really, really true. You mentioned parents and children. How does this work really support parents in leading more spiritual lives or bringing more of it into the family to become role models for their children, even though children already know all of this, but to reinforce the remembering and the living from within?
Well, I think the parents need the most work.
Yeah.
Because, you remember when you were a parent, and how much work we have to do to not pass on what was passed on to us if it wasn't so good. And the horse is a wonderful intermediary, because suddenly most parents, they're not on their own turf anymore. There was their kid who sits on a horse, and then I also help them to lead the horse, so the parent leads and then we do it the other way around. If the kid is old enough, the kid leads the parent.
Love that.
Oh, the excitement is grand. And so it does change the relational patterning, and especially it can lead to a much greater connectedness between parent and child, and it can help the parent to disengage from patterns like being a control freak or being overly cautious, because if you're overly cautious, the horse will feel insecure with you. And if you are like roughhousing it with the horse, your kid will be at risk.
Right.
Because as a parent, your concepts won't help you anymore, because the horse pushes you to be authentic and find the places where it's necessary to change, because your interaction with the child is usually very set. It's the same. It's always the same.
Same thing, the same loop, the same.
Exactly. And when you have a teenager, it becomes a nightmare. But when you engage, so I also had like parents with teenagers. You don't tell me what to do. But the horse will tell you what to do, because the horse will lead. So there were power games and ways that parent had to change, but also teenager had to change in order to make it work as a team together with the horse. And I think it's not only a great pattern interrupter, but I have also seen like relationships that were broken could heal. I've seen traumas heal, come forth and heal while being on a horse, like, for example, with women who were sexually abused and didn't even realize, but when you sit in this on bareback on a horse, your hips start moving, right? Your sacrum starts moving, and there's a rhythm that reminds you like when you were in the cradle, yeah? So this is back and forth rocking. But for women or girls who have been abused, raped, what happens? It locks up everything. Yeah. So that gentle movement, you have to go with the movement, because otherwise you completely block the horse. So I don't talk too much about it. I just said, just feel into how good it feels to be rocked by the horse. But then comes a moment when the trust is there enough that, of course, I set it up in a way that people can really feel safe to let their emotions come through. But when it's safe enough, and also with the horse, there's enough trust, at some point, there is this moment where the horse, literally, I can feel it, where the horse is paying so much attention to the woman or to the girl. It's very touching, because the horses catch it before it happens.
Right.
Then suddenly, the floodgates open.
So beautiful.
And the held back feelings come out. The body starts opening up. So my job is then to just help it to move, keep moving. And the horse moves all the time. But I have noticed, that when I say, hold on to the horse, hold on to the mane, it's such a lifesaver for many, because they had nothing to hold on to when it first happened. And holding on to a mane is not a big, is for the horse, doesn't hurt the horse. So they feel, wow, they're carried, there's goodness, they have something to hold on to that's real, that's alive, and they have support. And then the healing just begins to happen.
Mhm.
It's incredible.
So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that. So to segue a little bit, what excites you now? What are you involved in now since you kind of your it sounds like working with the horses was a while ago.
I do involve them still in some of my retreats. I teach trauma therapists. I train them, but I also work as a spiritual teacher with many groups around the world. And I teach spiritual leader training for women. And if in whatever way I can, I involve horses
Right.
because there's something about the realness and the honesty. And, somebody can, sometimes in spiritual circles, you find this, there's people who say like, oh, my heart is so open, I'm so loving. And you can feel it's not quite true, but they believe it is.
Right. It
But
is for them.
it's it's a certain spiritual, you want to look good spiritually. That's usually what it's about.
Right.
And
Right.
the horse,
Knows.
the horse just totally rejects you,
Right.
totally walks away, isn't interested. I mean, isn't even really rejecting you, just isn't interested because your heart is not there, open. And then often the self-realization comes, so maybe there is something in my heart. Oh, maybe it's not so open than I thought. And maybe there's something that I'm holding back, love. And that's a beautiful realization because then they can do the work and open up again. And then the horse, I've seen it, suddenly to the same person a week later, that horse turns around and comes running to the person.
Right. Right. It's
But
amazing.
their heart is open.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So what other, I mean, I know everything that you do is so healing and amazing, but if you had to compare one of the spiritual practices, and this might be difficult to do, but let's say you had no way to really spend any time with horses, or maybe even no desire or whatever it might be. What are the other one or two practices that you would suggest for parents and children to bring into their setting to help the healing process and to be closer and more of a connection?
Well, there's some very easy practices. You don't need to have a horse or go to
Right.
a horse stable. There's something really beautiful in nature. You have to involve nature because
Right.
nature is natural and we have become quite unnatural. So if you, for example, as a parent, want to be more connected to your child, you need to get more connected to yourself and to nature first. And it doesn't need to involve a big ordeal. But you can, for example, you can even do this with your kid. I used to do that with my daughter. The simplest way is like, touch a tree and lean your ear against the tree and say, I wonder what that tree is saying if it had a voice. So you don't give a lecture to the kid.
Right. Right.
And you take a moment to go in stillness and to get present. What is the tree saying? Your kid may follow you and do the same, and you can talk about what the tree just said to you. You can do it with animals together with your kid. You can do it by yourself. So one of the practices is, because it's so hard in our time for most people to get actually truly present.
Yeah.
It's, even with mindfulness practice, you do the practice and then you go and on your day and you forget what was that
Right.
about, present moment, wonderful moment.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. But what you can do is you take a moment during the day, any moment when you remember, and say, this is the most important moment right now. This person who's with me is the most important person. in this moment right now.
Mm.
And when you're by yourself, just to take a few breaths, and they don't have to be calming breath. But just notice when you put your hand, it's usually good to do something somatic.
Right.
Put your hand on your belly so you can really feel your hand on your belly and breathe into that. And put your hand on your heart and breathe into that and say, simple, say, hello, my heart, hello. And you say your name. And then you can do it if your kid is young, you can do it with your kid, or you can do it on your kid's body.
Right.
Kids love this. They, these simple things. I think sometimes we think it's complicated, but
Right. And
it
it says,
really isn't complicated. It's just a very different way of living by dedicating yourself to being or to coming more present, to coming more into your heart, to be more alive and connected. It's an unraveling of the old stuff. And in that moment, as a parent, for example, you are a role model because your kid is going to imitate you. Not only that, your kid will feel you really meet her or him. I know many people like later come. I never felt met by my parents. They did everything for me, but I never felt really at home and loved and heard. Because no matter how much you pretend to hear, if you're not really present, you're not hearing.
right.
And it's not the content; it's hearing the soul of your child. It's hearing the soul of each other. That improves relationships quite drastically. To learn that art, and I think animals teach us that.
Yes, absolutely. I had a friend who taught little ones, and she had a little boy who was just, just so active all the time and just couldn't settle down. And she sat him down one day and said, let's just look into each other's eyes. And she said, "Do you know what that is, what we're looking at?" And she said, each other's souls. And they just sat and he totally got into and looked into soul gazing.
Nice.
And then he walked away and he went over quietly and started playing with his toys. And it was, issue over. And it was just, I'll never forget, that really touched me. Well, we
That's
need to
beautiful,
wrap. Go ahead.
beautiful, Mala, just to say,
Yeah,
that's what babies do when they're born. They start gazing.
right.
Yeah. And it's not a forced gazing, it's naturally coming. The soul gazes into your eyes and into making that connection.
Mhm.
So I feel if we do a little more of that and soul listening, the animals respond, the
Mhm.
children respond, our hearts respond, and the world definitely will be a better place.
Uh, it reminds me when my first son was born. I'll never forget this. He was just born, and my father-in-law, who I'm really close to, and was in the room, and my son and John just were soul gazing. I mean, they couldn't take it. Was just, I'm getting goosebumps. It was so, I mean, this was a long time ago, and I still remember that so well. And yeah, thanks for helping us remember that. Well, Nicola, we do need to wrap it up, but you've already said so many things that could like your words of wisdom, but is there anything else that you'd like to chat about today? I know you do so many things, and so just
I
go for it.
I would just say whether you are listening because you're a parent or you're not a parent, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
I think for all of us, the most important is to remember that it's the moments you slow down enough to lean in and listen to not your own soul, gaze to your own soul, but also to another being. In that moment, we have not only healing, but more peace in this world. And anybody who does it, you feel far more connected and alive. And I feel that's what we need in this world. And horses certainly are a huge gift for that.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful conversation.
Very rich. Thank you, Mother.
Yes. And if people would like to learn more about you and find you and go on a retreat with you, what do you suggest? How do you suggest they find you?
They can just go on my website. It's really simple, nicolaamadora.com.
Yeah, and that will be on our show notes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I know it's late there, so have your cup of tea or glass of wine or whatever you're going to do, and have a great evening. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I hope
Bye-bye.
it gave everybody a little treasure for the way.
Absolutely.
Thank you.